Well, welcome to another episode of Real Bigfoot Encounters with Reverend Jeff. This report is one of our favorites. It's one of those very close encounters where the Bigfoot actually tries to make contact with the witness. Many times people are not prepared for what they're about to see. This is one of those stories. I used to live in Camino, California, and I'd go up to the Desolation Wilderness as often as I could. The trout fishing was really incredible, and it left a wonderful lasting memory with me. Since moving from the area, I hadn't been there in several years. I talked to a friend of mine about going up and camping overnight to do some stream fishing. He agreed, and also invited another friend along for the ride. We got up there early afternoon and hiked upstream from Wright's Lake and then set up camp. A couple hours later, a ranger come by and informed us that we hadn't actually made it into the Desolation Wilderness yet, and that we needed to keep hiking for a while. We broke camp, and then the two guys that were with me suggested we go to Placerville and get a room. Apparently, they weren't into camping and fishing after all. I said no thanks. I wanted to come up here to fish and camp, not party somewhere in town. So they left, and I went on up the hill further. The ranger suggested a great camping and fishing location, but because it was starting to get later in the afternoon, there's no way I would reach it tonight. He gave me a general location of where it could be found and what trails to take to get there, but when most of the area is large football field-sized sheets of granite, the trails are only marked with stacks of rocks, and those are far and few between. I ended up getting lost a little bit, but I could hear the stream flowing from the rocks just north of me. I walked in another half mile or so and located the stream. It was below me, about 35 feet down a granite cliff with a stream. It had a pool in it right on the tree line. I thought what a beautiful place it would be to have a campsite, and then picked my way down that steep cliff. I set up my camp directly next to the pool, and also within the tree line were some very dense woods about 6 feet away to the north. The pool was on the east side of me. I started fishing as soon as my tent was back up, and I had a gorgeous finish to a very nice day. Then, after it got dark, I climbed into my sleeping bag, looking to the east of the Crystal Range, I think it's called, and watched as the glow of the full moon worked its way up over the top of the granite mountains. Once it was over, my day was complete, and I decided to go to sleep. That was about 10:30 p.m. As I started to drift off to sleep, I heard what could only be described as a very low rumbling sound. When I go into the wilderness area, especially a place I know berries are really thick, I always carry a handgun with me. On this occasion, it was a .45 compact. When I heard the growl, it really scared the crap out of me, but it was so close. I jumped up with my .45, put it in my hand, and looked out the top of the screen mesh on the tent. I could see a dark mass about 4.5 feet tall right at the edge of the tree line, 6 feet from my head. I yelled some really loud obscenities and started to climb out of my tent. Once I was clear of the door, I brought my pistol and fired into a dead tree a few feet away from what I thought was a big black bear. As soon as the pistol went off, it turned and ran back into the brush, but it didn't seem to go very far, about 50 feet or so into that very thick brush. I could hear it thrashing about as it moved deeper into the trees, but then it just stopped. It all went quiet for about 15 minutes or so, and I again tried to get back into bed. Shortly after, I started hearing what sounded like some large rocks hitting in the water, just above the pool where I was camped. It would happen every couple of minutes or so. It was the sound of not only the splash, but also the rock hitting the other rocks submerged in the shin-deep water. That crackling sound. This really concerned me, thinking of the bear might be circling my campsite and trying to get me from a different angle. I got in my tent on several occasions and was trying to see if I could make out any movement on the other side of the stream, but I could see nothing. I usually keep a small flashlight in my tackle box, which I had, but it was gone. It was one of those small shake-it types that charges with the cell and the lights up a few minutes. Not much of a flashlight, really, and worse yet, the handle's clear. So when I turned it on, the handle would light up too. Things went on like this till about 2 a.m. I didn't get to see whatever it was. I heard movement really close to the tent again. It was the same place it was the first time, and I yelled at it. I got a return of something that sounded like an woof, woof, but really deep sounding. I jumped out of my tent again thinking I was going to see it again, but again, saw absolutely nothing. Still, I put another shot into the dead tree, and off it went crashing through the brush again. It again only went in about 50 feet into that thick brush. There was something odd about the way it sounded when it was running, too. It was only on 2 feet. It concerned me enough to realize that it didn't sound like a four-legged animal at the time, but I didn't know that it was different until I heard some of the recordings on different websites. Anyhow, still thinking I was dealing with a rogue bear, I started trying to figure out what it wanted with me. Was I camped on its trail to water? Was it used to finding food in tents? Desolation's a very high traffic place. This particular place was way off the trail, and it didn't appear to have much in the way of hikers. Hikers usually leave some kind of trash or fish hooks or something to say that they had been there before. This place was clean. So I decided to take my sleeping bag out of the tent and move over to the middle of this big slab of granite that I was on. There's about 4 foot tall of a ledge facing the woods where all the activity was going on, but now the tree line was over 50 feet away and not 6. Figuring this at least give me some advance warning if I got charged. The rocks kept flying and I kept standing up trying to see exactly what was going on, and I was on it all night long. Then she showed up. It was 4:40 a.m. and something woke me. I heard movement at the tree line again, and I looked to where all of it had started from. I didn't see anything, but then I looked at my tent, and standing right next to my tent was the creature. My tent is about 4 feet tall, maybe a little less, and what I saw was more than twice as tall. At first I couldn't see any of the features, just the outline, and then it took a couple of steps towards me. I almost pissed my pants right there. I picked up the .45 and took a shot off the left of it. It stopped and looked at me. Then it started walking towards me again. The steps were so big. The distance was closing very fast. Had it been a bear, I would have shot it immediately, but honestly, I don't think my .45 would have been able to stop this thing in its tracks. Then as it was approaching me, I took another shot, but this one much closer. I could see it very clearly at this point, and yes, I did piss my pants right there. The second shot made her stop again, and then she took off running to the northwest through an area of mostly granite slab dotted with some pine scrub. This was the last time I saw her. She ran out of sight, and it was at great speed. I pretty much stayed put with the ledge to my back and the gun in my hand and shaking in my skin. I've not been able to sleep right since then, and for the next couple of months after the incident, I couldn't sleep at all. Every time I closed my eyes, I could hear the growls and the rock splashing and then see her coming at me. I've been a hunter and a fisherman my entire life. Nothing like this has ever shown its face before, and I hope that it never does again. Bob. When the figure got about 15 feet of the witness, the bright full moon illuminated the front, and it allowed this witness to see some details of the face and shape. Among other things, the animal's face was similar to a human, with the nose being slightly wider, and the lips about the same proportion as a human. The nostrils faced downwards, not outward like a gorilla. The lower jaw was wider and larger in proportion to the head than a human. There was hair on the face and on the head and on the shoulders as well. The arms were considerably longer, ranging from 3 to 8 inches longer. The hair was not thick like fur, as you could actually see the skin through the hair itself in places. The witness says that he could see her breasts, and he decided that it was a female based on that observation. The breasts were large and saggy, but everything else for the most part was proportionate. They weren't excessively large. Yes, when I saw the nipples, they were brown in color. The eyes appeared brown with no white showing. Eyes were about the same size in proportion to the head as a human's would be. The level of the mouth was even at the shoulders. The arm length was longer than human, with the fingertips not quite reaching the knees. The head was conical in appearance from the side, but the cone was not exactly evident when facing the animal. The back of the head appeared mainly flat, coming down from the peak of the crown towards the shoulders. The preceding description is related by the witness as he's sitting on the ground 15 feet away from the animal looking upwards at it. I'm sure for him it was probably one of the most terrifying encounters of his life. For me, it's just another real Bigfoot encounter. Thanks for listening. I'm Reverend Jeff, and may the Squatch be with you.